Hello everybody, my name is Emily Callen and we're here in Dayton Children's Community Teaching Kitchen and we're about to make the recipe creamy pumpkin pasta for Mission of Mary's Farm to Fork dinner. Now you might be wondering, why are we in Dayton Children's Community Teaching Kitchen? And the answer to that simply is I helped plan the menu and I work here. So this is where we're filming the video. But it also is a great opportunity for us to brag about some of the work that we've done with Mission of Mary in this past year. Currently, we are running a 6-month study where we give 15 families from our Healthy Me Clinic, which is our overweight and obesity clinic here at Dayton Children's. We'll give those families a weekly CSA box for 6 months and have them participate in 18 virtual nutrition education sessions all around mindful eating and preparing of the produce that they get at Mission of Mary. We hope that in those 6 months we can create some excitement around healthy eating and change some behaviors, and we'll see what kind of changes we make in those 6 months. In fact, I had a mom pick up the vegetables last week. She opened up the box and talked about how great the produce looked for Mission of Mary and then exclaimed, "My daughter's not going to eat any of this." So let's hope in 6 months we can change her daughter's mind. But until then, we will get started on this pumpkin pasta. I hope you enjoy. Okay, so we're going to start with step 1. And for step 1, we're going to make our roux. So all I'm going to start it with is our 1 tablespoon of butter, and we're just going to let that melt down and coat the pan. And then I'm going to cook the garlic right away just to give it the whole dish a good garlic flavor right in the beginning. So I'm going to let that melt a little bit. This is over a medium heat. Now, when we're making a roux, we don't want to cook it too quickly because it's very easy to burn butter and burn the flour. But a roux is kind of the beginning of any sauce. If you were in culinary school, this would be day 1. How do you make a roux? And a roux is going to be equal parts fat and equal parts flour. But we're going to do a little bit of garlic in here too. So when it comes to cooking garlic, you definitely don't want to overcook garlic. So we're going to let this sit for about 2 minutes. And then it will be good. If it starts getting too dark, I would definitely pull it off the heat because that'll taste very bitter. This sauce that we're making is really almost like it's like a basic Alfredo sauce with pumpkin added into it. Okay, so it's been about a minute of it cooking. You can see the garlic some of those smaller pieces are starting to brown and some of that butter is starting to brown. And I don't want it to overcook, so I'm going to go ahead and add the flour. Now we cook the flour and turn it into a paste because if we don't, the sauce will have like a gritty flavor. And it is important for us to cook this a little bit. We want this to be like a golden brown color, and that will be perfect before we add our liquid. Now, when you're cooking, you do want to keep this moving. If it sits in any one spot too long, it will have a tendency to burn. So stay on top of it. I think a whisk is the best tool to use for this part, but you can use anything that's convenient for you to use at home. You can start to see that golden brown color developing. So we're going to let it cook for another 20 seconds or so, and then it's going to be perfect. And then we're going to add our milk, and you want to add that milk slowly. So you have your 2-cup container, and I'm going to add about a half at a time while stirring continuously. Really, the best thing that you can use for this is a whisk. That's really going to get the flour clumps like as smooth as possible, which we want. You don't want a flour chunk. in your recipe, so I recommend using a whisk. But if you have nonstick pans at home, I don't want you ruining your nonstick pans, so just use the best tool that you have at home. And you want to heat the milk slowly. If you heat it too quickly, it's going to burn, and then you'll have that scalding milk taste, and it's going to be really gross. So let it heat nice and slow. Again, I'm at about medium heat, and kind of the secret for dairy when you're cooking with it is to keep it moving. So the reason you build a roux and then build this creamy sauce is it's going to be easier for us to melt our cheese and add our pumpkin. Now for our pumpkin pasta, it's going to be actually a mixture of lots of different things. So you'll get some roasted squash from the farm, and then we filled in everything else with canned pumpkin from the store. All right, so I'm going to add the rest of my milk. I have about half left, and I'm going to let it cook until it's nice and thick. All right, so what we're gonna do is, you can see from this sauce, it's a little bit thicker than it was. You can kind of see from me pulling the spoon. I might want it a little thicker, but we're gonna add the ingredients, and it's been on a very low simmer for about 5 minutes, I would say, to get to this point. So what we're gonna do next is we're gonna turn the heat on really, really low, and we're gonna add some of our extra ingredients. So what we wanna do is do an 1/8 teaspoon of nutmeg. So I don't have an 1/8 teaspoon measuring, but I have a quarter. So I'm gonna start with a quarter, or not with a quarter. I'm gonna fill it up halfway, add it in. So 1/8 teaspoon nutmeg, 1/8 teaspoon of cinnamon, and then 1/8 teaspoon of pepper. Now, if you just want to eyeball all this because you're an experienced chef, by all means, please do that. Next, we're going to add in our 1 cup of our pumpkin/squash mix. You can see kind of that film is already forming, so we'll give it a good stir. And that's gonna probably thin it out a little bit at first, because that consistency, it has a little bit more water in it, but it'll thicken up over time. Actually, maybe not. Look at that. And then we'll add our 3 ounces of cream cheese in there. Now, what I noticed when I was testing this recipe was that the cream cheese, and let's do half of our sage as well. The cream cheese took a little bit of time to blend into the sauce, but it will definitely break up over time and become a smooth consistency. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna let this cook on a nice low heat for, I would say, about 20 minutes, so that all the flavors can blend, so that everything can become nice and creamy. And once we're towards the end, we're gonna add our Parmesan cheese, let that cook in a little bit, and then we'll add our pasta right to this mixture. So my pasta has been cooking the whole time, and we'll be ready to add. So make sure your pasta is all done cooking, 8 to 10 minutes in boiling water. All right, I'll check back in a few. Okay, the next step that we're going to do is we have to saute our greens that we're gonna serve over the top. So I'm gonna add about a tablespoon of oil. Again, this is over medium heat. And we'll just spread that around. And then we're gonna add our diced bell peppers and onions. So how I'm going to season these I'm going to season with salt, pepper, and a dash of nutmeg, because we want some of those flavors from our pumpkin pasta to carry over. I do have my pumpkin sauce on a low heat here, continuing to cook while I'm getting these greens ready. So what we're looking for here in our greens or in our veggies before we move on to our next step is we want those onions to cook all the way and become that translucent color. When we cook the greens, I'm going to really just throw them in, toss them in the oil, and let them cook for just a couple minutes. I do want to keep the greens nice and crunchy because we're going to have a very soft pasta here, a soft creamy pasta here, and it'll be nice to have that contrast with the still a little bit crunchy veggies and the soft pasta on top. If you prefer it another way, well, you're cooking for yourself at home, so you can totally do that. You can see from my pasta sauce at that low heat, a lot of that cream cheese has already cooked in, so it really has become nice and smooth. If you're questioning what this is actually some of our pasta water from cooking our pasta. When we incorporate both the pasta into the sauce, it'll be nice to have a little extra liquid on hand if we need it, if it needs a little bit more liquid. So some fun facts about me is that I have been helping plan the menu for Farm to Fork for I think 5 years now. So if there's been a dish that you have loved at the past Farm to Forks, you can thank me. And if you didn't like any of the dishes, that was probably somebody else cooking them. So not my fault. I also in the past have been an intern on Mission of Mary years ago when we only had 12 CSA members. And I was actually an intern with Stephen Mackel, the current farm manager. So you could say that I taught Stephen everything that he knows. It wouldn't be true, but you could say it. All right, so these are looking pretty golden brown. I'm gonna say that they're ready to go for the greens. Now, this is a big plate of greens. It's gonna seem like a lot, but greens cook down quite a bit, as I'm sure you know from cooking all your greens that you get from the farm at home. And while I'm adding these greens and letting them cook down, I'm gonna add our Parmesan cheese to our sauce. So again, it's still over low heat. I might turn it up just a touch, add that in. Now, I would wait to test for salt in the sauce until after the Parmesan cheese is in, just because Parmesan adds quite a bit of salt to the sauce. So we're gonna give that a good stir, let that melt in and become creamy, and then we'll add that pasta in and toss it together. The hard part about tossing greens is trying not to get it all over your stove. And you can already see it wilting down a little bit. So I like to keep my greens like nice and bright. That's kind of the perfect spot for me. And what the beautiful thing about food, and one of the reasons why I love cooking, is that food is such like a great point for people to come together and build community, which is what Farm to Fork is all about. So, you know, we are hoping that even though we couldn't be in person together, that you get some satisfaction and you feel that community while you're cooking at home, knowing that you have others, you know, cooking the same thing at home right alongside you. So those are almost perfect. And this point, the sauce is nice and ready for me to add my pasta. So I'm going to go ahead and add that in. Now, tongs might be a really good thing to have for this. So let me I'm going to use my tongs to get this pasta in. All right, so you can see our pasta has come together. I don't really think that I need that pasta water. It was good to have just in case. I'm going to continue to stir this a little bit, but it looks like our greens are ready to go. They're that nice bright green color. And this is a great point to test the seasoning of both parts, right? Test the seasoning of your sauce, see if you want to add anything in there. Test the seasoning of your greens. And what I'm going to do right now is, once I get this pasta all stirred, I'm going to top it with the sage, and it'll look really, really pretty. All right, we are all done. You can see my pumpkin pasta is all plated up. We have it coated on top with the grains on top. That's how I like to eat it. You can top it however you like. I'm sure at home you also maybe have a little bowl of soup and some bread on the side as well. And maybe your glass of wassail with you. So thanks for cooking alongside with us. Please let us know how it turns out for you and how much you like it. Thanks for watching.